Welcome to CityClub's 2015 annual benefit. I'm Justo Gonzalez, president of the board of CityClub. CityClub is your trusted, nonpartisan place for civic conversation, inspiration, and action. Our programs strengthen the civic health of our region, and we thank you for joining us today. We are gathered here today, a phrase with particular resonance for our country today, to celebrate an extraordinary and beloved local civic trailblazer, and to learn about a national initiative to strengthen our democracy and support the work that CityClub does every day to engage nearly 50,000 Washingtonians with each other and with civic skills and opportunities to shape their own communities. I would like to begin today by thanking our sponsors, beginning with our event sponsors, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Boeing Company, and Seattle Business Magazine. Our premier table sponsors, Primera, Stokes Lawrence, Schwabe, Williamson, and Wyatt, Swedish, and Virginia Mason. And also our very many table sponsors and table hosts. Please join me in giving them a round of applause. Now, it is my profound pleasure to present the 4th annual Nancy Nordoff Civic Leadership Award. Nancy Nordoff, she is one of Seattle City Club's 8 remarkable founders, and she is a consummate community builder. She builds collective leadership. She builds new institutions and strengthens existing ones through generous philanthropy, mentorship, and rolling up her sleeves to realize her vision and commitments. Nancy is a founder, a collaborator, an instigator, a role model, and a risk taker. She invests in both people and ideas that have big impact, and she does so with humility and boldness. We are delighted at City Club to award our 2015 Nancy Nordoff Civic Leadership Award to someone who models so many of those same leadership traits. And we do so not only in Nancy Nordoff's presence, but with all 3 of our prior award winners joining us today: Ann Levinson, Floyd Jones, and Martha Koensgaard. Please join me in recognizing these remarkable leaders. Estela Ortega, she began her career of service and community organizing as a young adult through participation in advocacy, voter registration, and anti-war initiatives in her hometown of Houston, Texas. Lured to Seattle in 1972 after attending a conference on social justice, she was inspired to return again only a few months later when she joined the peaceful occupation of an abandoned Beacon Hill Elementary School that would one day become El Centro de la Raza. Her longtime friend, County Council member Larry Gossett, he met her on her very first day in Seattle. He says what he saw was a smart, resolute community activist, an emerging leader already committed to the causes of social justice and people's liberation that would become her work of a lifetime. Seattle became Estela's home. She married El Centro's charismatic leader, Roberto Maestas. And from then until now, some 43 years later, her professional growth mirrored El Centro's development as the soul of this community. El Centro offers social services, educational trainings, cultural programming, community organizing skills, and leadership development to thousands of people, including generations of families in our region. El Centro hosts a monthly legal clinic where lawyers volunteer to offer free legal services to the community. Estela has served as El Centro's executive director since 2009. One of her board members, Francisco Calderon, explains how she models democracy in her leadership. She always solicits the opinions of others and encourages them to take on responsibilities to address the challenges at hand, while at the same time developing their own abilities to lead. Often at El Centro, social service and food bank clients become volunteers. Then they become workshop providers. They become staff and even board members. Their personal successes add to the community's strength in a virtuous cycle of empowerment. This is a core value and intentional strategy of Estela's vision. Alex Bautista, now El Centro's Hope for Youth program coordinator, began coming to El Centro when he was just 3 years old. He considers Estela to be his aunt. He shared a story about Estela. He said, "When I was a senior in high school, I asked her if she had any ideas for a summer job for me. She told me to come back in a couple of days. And when I did, she said, 'We'd like to start a history class so that Latino and Latina teens could learn about their culture. And we want you to teach it.' She said, 'When you come from a historically oppressed people, you must get up earlier and try harder than everyone else.' So despite my lack of credentials," he said, "I studied hard, and I did it because of Estela's faith, her trust, and her high expectations." For so many like Alex, Estela is perceived as a natural leader and a motivator who builds empowered, mutually supportive leadership teams. Her friend Ann Stadler says, "Estela is very strong. She tells the truth. She pays attention without an ounce of blame. She helps people in a compassionate way measure up to what they aspire to do." But Estela's natural ability is also matched by her careful observation as a student of social justice and liberation movements across the world. Quotes from Martin Luther King Jr., Jose Marti, Daniel Ortega, and Rosa Parks pepper her everyday speech. They're painted, these words, on the walls of El Centro, and they shine through every aspect of El Centro's operations. Anne says, "That place on Beacon Hill is a beacon for our whole community." And now Estela Ortega is leading the biggest single initiative El Centro has ever tackled. Plaza Roberto Maestas. It's a $45 million transit-oriented affordable housing project right adjacent to El Centro's main building. It's to be completed next summer, and it will provide essential economic opportunities, job creation, early childhood development and education, and additionally community gathering spaces. Plaza Roberto Maestas will be the manifestation of El Centro and Estela's vision in building a beloved community, in bricks and mortar, in values and experience, in boldness and determination, in collective labor and inspiration. Her colleague Rich Stoltz, he says, "Accomplishments and influence aside, what I admire most about Estela is how she lives her values, her commitment to family, and how she runs El Centro, her passion and interest in mentoring others, especially younger women of color, and her honesty, her integrity, speaking her own truth even when it challenges others in positions of power. The beloved community she envisions for El Centro and for the broader community in Seattle and Washington State is a reflection of the love and the tireless sense of duty and service she brings to all she loves." We're going to do something a little bit different now. I'm going to go off script. Sorry, Allie. I want you to join me in a cheer of thanks and encouragement for this year's Nancy Nordoff Civic Leadership Award winner. We're going to do this 3 times. It's very traditional. When I say, Viva Estela Ortega. Each of you is going to respond, Viva, with enthusiasm, con ganas. So here we go. Hope everybody's ready. Que viva Estela Ortega. Viva! Que viva Estela Ortega. Viva! Que viva Estela Ortega. I have always wanted to do that. And adding to our celebration and congratulations today, I have a mayoral proclamation declaring today, June 26th, Estela Ortega Day. I will hold it for you. Okay.
My God, this is amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I just have to share with you because it's such an amazing surprise. My youngest daughter just flew in from New York, and I had no idea that she was going to be here. This is Adriana Maestas, my daughter. So it brought tears to my eyes to see her here. Thank you so much, Mamita, for coming to be a part of this beautiful award. A couple of things before I start my comments. We need to acknowledge that today in our country is a very special day. I read on Facebook somewhere that says, marriage for all is the law of the land. So we need to acknowledge that and celebrate that. Yes. And last year's awardee, Martha Kansgaard, I can't beat her opening. She yodeled, and so I don't know how to yodel. I don't know how to sing, so we'll just carry on. Gracias to Justo for those amazing comments and all the different individuals that spoke on my behalf. Thank you. You are so generous and kind with your comments about my work, the work of El Centro de la Raza. And it's so wonderful to see so many friends here today at this luncheon, and also the wonderful opportunity to meet so many new people. That has just been fantastic, and to expose El Centro de la Raza to you. Para los niños trabajamos porque los niños son que saben amar, porque ellos son la esperanza del mundo. It is for the children that we work, for they are the ones who know how to love, for they are the hope of the world. And in that vein, I would like to introduce to you my 4 beautiful grandchildren, Mavi, Juanito, Lucia, and Julieta. They bring such immense joy to my life, and they're here at this table here. Gracias. Along with my daughter Amalia, John Daniels Jr., and John Daniels Jr. of the Muckleshoot tribe. Thank you. To Señora Nordoff, we at El Centro are honored to be a recipient of the Nancy Nordoff Award. I feel privileged to have spent a little bit of time with you. Your kind and unassuming demeanor is to be emulated, as is the tremendous legacy you have created at Hedgebrook, a legacy that celebrates the empowerment of women and the richness of diversity, with more than 50% of the alumni being women of color. Mil gracias for your steadfastness. It has been said that the one who bestows honor is greater than the one who receives it. CityClub, your selfless act in honoring our life's work speaks to your commitment to inclusion. A sincere and heartfelt gracias for being in solidarity with our struggle to build a fair and just society. Today, I accept the Nancy Nordoff Award in the name of our children, our youth, and the yet unborn who are relying on us to prepare for their future. To our board of directors, our staff, our volunteers, this award is yours too. To our participants, this award today is yours as well. Every day, your determination and your spirit inspires all of us in the work we do. Some of them are here today with us. Please give them a round of applause. Through El Centro's work, we serve over 15,000 people annually, representing around 8,000 families with 48 different programs in the areas of children and youth, emergency and human services, education and skill building programs, economic development, and advocacy work, all with the goal of creating sustainability in people's lives. The demographics of our nation are changing. In 2010, the US Census announced a significant milestone. More than half of all the babies born in this country are now of color. By 2018, 3 years away, the majority of youth will be of color. By 2030, the majority of the young workforce will be of color. And these national numbers hold true for our county as well. The recent murders of 9 people in South Carolina demands a response from our nation, and our children are listening. The response must be one that demands an end to racist violence and demands that all of our people are safe in their communities. This is why community and civic engagement has been and will continue to be the lifeblood of El Centro de la Raza. In King County Executive Dow Constantine's recent State of the County address, he spoke of the crisis of income inequality, particularly affecting communities of color. Executive Constantine stated, "We must give all of our children, regardless of race, our family income, our zip code, the best start in life we can." Dow is proposing Best Start for Kids, a 6-year levy raising $58 million in the first year. This levy will cost an average homeowner about $1 a week. We must invest in those who are the future if we are to remain strong economically, and it is also our obligation. It has been said that there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. The levy is working its way through the county council process, and we hope to see it on the ballot in November. And if it's on the ballot, we would hope that you would vote for it. So it was mentioned earlier that we are on the cusp. We started the development of a $45 million development called Plaza Roberto Maestas that embodies the beloved community, the spirit of the beloved community. Creating 112 units of affordable housing, living wages, small business retail space, micro businesses to be located within a 12,000 square foot plaza. early childhood development and a beautiful cultural center that will be celebrating life. And I must say today is that we have a representative from Boeing here, Colette Ogle, and the Boeing employees have made a gift to El Centro de la Raza of $500,000 that will be presented to us on July the 30th, and so that just gives our capital campaign a boost. So thank you so much, Colette. So we know that we face a shortage of affordable housing in our city. And so our mayor is working on that in terms of having a task force that will be coming out with recommendations very soon. But I want you to imagine for a moment what it will be like for residents of Plaza Roberto Maestas who will no longer have to choose between paying the rent and buying food, paying the rent and keeping the utilities on, paying the rent and filling that prescription. We are growing a neighborhood with imagination and beauty for all, awakening hope in people's lives for a better tomorrow, a beautiful expression of what the beloved community can be. Civic engagement can mean many things. Nonprofits rely on engaged individuals to advocate on our behalf and to support the work we do. We invite you to contact us, come and visit El Centro de la Raza, learn our history. We have a glorious history. Take a tour and meet some of our participants and get to know us. This is not a part of my speech, but I'm going to cite a beautiful quote from Jose Marti that says, in a time of crisis, and we are facing a crisis, even though there are good things happening in the country at the same time, but the peoples of the world must rush to get to know each other. So we invite you to please come and get to know us. Mil gracias for your friendship, your love, and support for this wonderful honor. Gracias.
Thank you, Estela, for that stirring message and your words. El Centro de la Raza is just one of the many vibrant civic institutions that have sprung up in our region. Our region is known for its vibrant civic institutions, its active voters, innovative social entrepreneurs, and a strong culture of volunteerism and philanthropy. But like physical health, civic health requires vigorous and consistent exercise. And CityClub is strengthening our community's capacity to work together and resolve collective problems. And our work is having an impact, as demonstrated by the stories of 6 individuals highlighted in a short video presentation.
So when we look at the data around Seattle's civic health and compare it to metropolitan areas all over the country, we see that there's so many strengths that we have. We're one of the healthiest civic places in America. We're great at rolling up our sleeves to solve problems together. We're great at joining organizations. We're almost first in the nation when it comes to volunteering. In fact, our millennials are first. We give philanthropically. We vote in local elections. And yet, the picture is not completely rosy. So some of the things we're not so great at, and we're working hard at CityClub to address, are friendliness, neighborliness, the ability to welcome newcomers and make sure there are bridges and avenues and pathways for them to connect to the existing civic fabric.
I think of civic health similarly to the way that I might think of my own personal health. So my own personal health is divided between body, mind, and spirit. Seattle City Club has helped improve my civic health by really engaging me with that mind part.
You know, a motto that my spouse Nathan and I really believe in, it's sort of our family motto, is blossom where you're planted. CityClub has done so much to help me improve my civic health. The Civic Boot Camp program has been one of my highlights of my time as a young adult in the city of Seattle. It's helped me to think about who we bring to the table and what each person has to offer. And in Civic Boot Camp, it's never been just one side.
I had a great conversation with somebody, I think 2 or 3 civic cocktails ago. We got talking about tax reform, which is not at all what I was there to learn more about. But hearing another person's perspective, I think those are the kind of engagements and interactions that you can really benefit from by being involved in the City Club.
When I came here from Chicago, a leader in the nonprofit community said, hey, you should go check out some City Club events. So I did. The first one I attended was the Year in Review, and City Club is killing it with its programming right now. I left that Year in Review feeling like that was a great use of my time. I learned a lot. The energy was just palpable in there. The panelists, many of whom disagreed with one another, but they were so civil and engaged and thoughtful. So I started to go to more of City Club's events and programs, and every time I've left feeling like that was a great investment of my time.
For any healthy community, individuals have responsibilities, some share of responsibility, duty to volunteer, to be part of the community and then contribute. I think change comes not only from the government side. I think in neighborhoods, people contributing here and there, being involved in their civic duty are actually more powerful.
What I would urge my fellow Seattleites, and the way I would encourage them to get civically active, is just to do something. And that means stepping out of your house and getting involved.
You can start by coming to a City Club event. You can start by learning a little bit more about the issues that are relevant in your community. I think it's all about being active and making sure that, and being intentional about how you're going to shape your community.
Right. So in 1989, along with his wife and partner, Jackie Cross, Tom Douglas opened his first restaurant in downtown Seattle, the Dahlia Lounge. Tom and Jackie never dreamed that more than 25 years later, they would be running a sizable group of successful and diverse businesses, the Tom Douglas Empire, employing almost 1,000 people. And just as their business portfolio flourished, so too did their philanthropic and civic leadership. Tom and Jackie have woven a commitment to community activism into their company's DNA. It's baked in, so to speak. An important line in the company mission statement is, building a vibrant, innovative, and profitable company which has the will and economic strength to give back to the community. The company and its employees support a variety of causes with a primary focus on hunger relief. For many years, Tom was the chairman of Share Our Strength, a fundraiser that brought restaurateurs together to raise money and awareness to end childhood hunger. Tom has served on the board of Food Lifeline for 30 years, working to strengthen its food distribution capabilities. The company has contributed to hunger and disaster relief and so many other causes, and I'm proud to say that they are a sponsor and host for Seattle City Club's monthly civic cocktail program. Please join me in welcoming our friend and partner, Tom Douglas, as he invites you to support City Club.
Howdy. I got my 110 degree in Prosser, Washington at our farm hat on today, in deference to my wife who's over there suffering through 6 straight days of 110 degrees. Scary stuff when there's no water on top of it. I was asked to be one of the table captains, but I thought I would share instead my story a little bit about civic responsibility and why I like City Club. For me, it's really short and really simple. around the dinner table is where conversation happens, or it's where it should happen. It's where politics should happen. It's where you should learn how to transition from a youngster, adolescent to a teenager. You should have conversation constant about your life, your family. And that's what I feel like our restaurants do. So many people spend their day behind a computer, and they need a place to go and release, and our restaurants provide some of that. And we're thankful that you join us. There's a lot of people who can't walk through our front doors, and that doesn't let us off the hook, and hence my involvement with Food Lifeline. I feed people. That's my job in this world, and sometimes they can afford it. Thank you. And sadly, sometimes they can't. So that's why we raise money for Food Lifeline. But I love, for CityClub in particular, I love that conversation, the civil discourse about our issues. And I think that that's what's missing today. I just went through it myself in the $15 Now debate in downtown Seattle, where through shout-downs, reality was not ever considered. It was only through shout-downs that people got their opinions stated. And you've probably all been in those meetings and in those situations, but for me it was a revelation about how government works and how it's inaccurate and incapable of monitoring itself. And that's what I like about Joni Balter being up there on the stage at the Palace Ballroom and having a civil discourse about our issues of the day. So I love CityClub. In addition to being the host, I've been a guest at CityClub, which was really fun. I found the experience to be challenging. Joni is a tough interviewer, thought-provoking and impactful. As you heard from the people in the video, and as you probably know, to me, community service isn't an option, it's an obligation. And I think that I take that very seriously. I'm asking you to make it part of your obligation at your table today. I'm sure there's an ask right there that I don't know exactly what it looks like, but we're asking for a minimum of $200 if you can do it for each and every one of you. If you can do more, that would be awesome. So if the table captains could pass that out, that would be terrific. I know you want to be part of changing our community, otherwise you wouldn't be in this room. Remember, the more you give, the more you'll have, especially since the longtime CityClub supporter Matthew N. Clapp, Jr. will generously match $1 for every $2 that a new donor or second-time donor is going to put in. Thank you, Mr. Clapp. Your contributions to CityClub's annual fund supports their operations and programming and helps fulfill the mission of strengthening the civic health of our region by informing, connecting, and engaging citizens. Your $200 contribution will help build a vibrant, innovative community now and for generations to come. Thank you for your gift. I'll see you at the next Civic Club opportunity in October at the Palace Ballroom. Cheers to you all.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Diane Douglas, CityClub's Executive Director. Great. Although people tend to consider the essential tenet of democracy to be the political empowerment of the people, this alone does not produce a successful democracy. The people can be effectively empowered only if they have enough context to make good decisions. That statement might have been written by me or another CityClub staffer in a blog post addressing our organizational mission, as you've heard it several times today, of informing, connecting, and inspiring citizens to action. But in fact, it was written by our national civic innovator, General Stanley McChrystal, in his new book, Team of Teams. A narrative describing the challenge of transforming a hierarchical, secretive, and highly efficient military structure to fight a new kind of enemy in Iraq and Afghanistan. The book offers lessons for those who lead organizations of any kind today. Business, government, academic, nonprofit, and foundation leaders can all benefit from its key lessons on what it takes to adapt to an ever-changing environment, to inspire and resource on-the-ground leaders, to ensure effective communications in organizations big and small, and to sustain cultures that foster innovation and excellence. A transformational leader with a remarkable record of achievement and service General McChrystal was called one of America's greatest warriors by Secretary of Defense Robert Gates. He is a retired four-star general, the former commander of U.S. and International Security Assistance Forces Afghanistan, and the former commander of the nation's premier military counterterrorism force, Joint Special Operations Command. In 2009, the President of the United States and the Secretary General of NATO appointed General McChrystal commander of U.S. forces, Afghanistan, and NATO, where his command included more than 150,000 troops from 45 allied countries. After his retirement from the military in 2010, he co-founded the McChrystal Group to deliver innovative business solutions to American businesses. He is a senior fellow and teacher at Yale University's Jackson Institute for Global Affairs. He sits on the boards of Navistar International Corporation and JetBlue. His memoir, My Share of the Task, was a New York Times bestseller in 2013. General McChrystal is a passionate advocate for national service and veterans issues. He is co-chair of the Franklin Project at the Aspen Institute, where he calls for a future in which a full-time year of national service is a cultural expectation, a common opportunity, and a civic rite of passage for every young American. That leadership position is at the core of our invitation to him to speak with us in Seattle today. Professor Craig Allen is the Judson Faulkner Professor of Law at the University of Washington, where he teaches maritime, international, and national security law. He joined the university's faculty in 1996, shortly after his retirement from the U.S. Coast Guard. Professor Allen has also served as a visiting professor at Yale Law School, the U.S. Coast Guard Academy, and the U.S. Naval War College. And I think as a member of the Coast Guard, he heard our emergency service call at 4 o'clock this morning when Dean Kelly Testy couldn't make it back to Seattle from her service in Orlando, Florida, where she was giving another lecture. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, he answered that emergency service call, and at 9 o'clock this morning, he was here on duty at the Westin, learning about our program today and agreeing to be a part of it. So I thank him profoundly. Hooray for the U.S. Coast Guard. I welcome and hope you'll help me in welcoming Professor Allen and General McChrystal to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thanks so much. Too bad. Got a little feedback. Are we on? Okay, well, thank you, Diane. Congratulations. Where did Estela go? Congratulations to Estela. And thank you for having us here. I am not Dean Kelly Testy, I'm proud to say, but I'm happy to fill in. And thank you for that plug for the United States Coast Guard, by the way. We always appreciate it. Being the smallest of the 5 armed forces of the United States, we do appreciate that. So General McChrystal, welcome to Seattle. One pledge I have to extract from you before we begin is when you return to the other Washington, you need to tell them that it rained constantly while you were here. Nobody could venture out of the house. Anyway, let's move on. What we have just heard, I think, is a wonderful problem statement for a visionary leader like you. We've heard about the problems in housing, the problems in education, problems in getting adequate nutrition, civic engagement, building citizenship, and I know you have some powerful ideas about that. But before we turn to your new book, I'd like to ask you about your work as I believe you chair the Leadership Council for the Aspen Institute's Franklin Project. Could you tell us what the vision of that Franklin Project is and why you feel it's important?
Absolutely, and thanks for having me, and thanks for your warm welcome. Sometimes it's easier to look at a problem when you don't look at your own problem, because if you look at your own, you've got emotional ties, sometimes too much information. In Afghanistan, in southern Afghanistan, all of the agriculture is supported by irrigation. There's essentially no rainfall, so it depends upon the snowfall that lands in the mountains and then the subsequent water that comes down as the snow melts in the spring. In places in Afghanistan, you can farm near rivers, but to get irrigation further, or to get crops further away, you need to use irrigation. And they have an ingenious system called the Kharez system. And what they do is they dig underground tunnels towards rising ground, and those underground tunnels take water from where it is more plentiful, and it runs it in these underground tunnels and then puts it into irrigation ditches near crops in otherwise unarable land. Those Kharez systems are owned and run by villages, and they have to be maintained because you can imagine an underground tunnel gets full of silt and whatnot pretty quickly. So regularly you have to go in, you have to clean them out. It's a mucky, dirty job. It's like cleaning your sewers, but yet you're doing it as a community. Well, what happened during the Soviet period when you began to have constant war is the communities began to break down. And the communities found that they couldn't or wouldn't go out there and do the dirty job of maintaining the Kharez systems. And pretty soon, it became a habit that had been lost. And then as we started to try to build stability back into societies, that fabric, that habit, that tradition, and that responsibility to maintain those wasn't there. And then there was a decision, well, I tell you what, we'll hire people to do that, to do our dirty work for us. And of course, ultimately, that doesn't produce the same outcome. So as a consequence, it became for me a representation of what happens when your sense of citizenship evolves or erodes over time. We also look at places like Afghanistan and we say, well, they are different from us because, in fact, they're tribal. And if you go to a village or a town, they will be of tribe X. Well, that's not true. They will have a tribal structure, but in a place like Marshall, which became famous as one of the areas in which American forces were heavily involved, there were 20 tribes in a small area. So the area wasn't defined by a single tribe or a single value set or a single leadership. It was just as mixed as we are in our towns and cities today. So much more complex up close than it might appear from afar. And what that gets me to is, if you want to solve a problem, I believe you've got to get upstream from the problem, or as we said with improved explosive devices in Iraq, we had to get to the left of the boom time-wise. You can react to the problem when it happens, and usually what you're doing is just dealing with the consequence of the problem itself, be it an explosion, be it somebody has lost the ability to be a part of society, suddenly you're dealing with consequences. That's a very inefficient, ineffective way to make a society work. And you've got to get to the left of the problem time-wise, in the lifespan of people and in a society itself. I think what has happened in America over the last several decades is, for lots of reasons, and there's no villain you can pin this on, citizenship, the concept of it in America has eroded somewhat. It's gone down to sort of a lowest common denominator. Many people view citizenship today as a right. I got citizenship because I was born here, or I got citizenship because I came here and I earned it, and now I can vote. I should pay taxes, and it gives me some rights, gives me legal protections and whatnot. But I don't think that's what citizenship is. I think a nation is nothing more than a covenant between a group of people who decide to be a nation. There's nothing that draws out nations and say this was always the United States of America, because it never was always the United States of America. That changes. Groups of people to come together and they make a shared commitment to each other to be a political body. And when you talk about citizenship, we talk about rights, but we really also talk about obligations, responsibilities to each other. And if we talk about the sacred thing of what being a citizenship is, it's that sense of responsibility, because you have willingly said, I will be responsible for certain things. And in consequence, I get some of the shared benefits of people also feeling responsible to the organization that I've chosen to be a part of. I think what has happened in America, as I mentioned, I think that's eroded a bit. I think we don't have the same sense of deep responsibility for our community. It's probably very strong in this room, but if we went out across our entire nation and we look at the rate at which we vote, the percentage of which we vote, which is less than the percentage of people who vote in Afghanistan, if we look at those other things that talk about our commitment to each other, I think it's not as strong as we want it to be. So how do you fix it? Well, one way to do it, of course, is teach people. And you can teach people civics. You can teach a lot of things, and that's all important. But I think we learn most from experience. And sometimes that experience is not at the moment exactly what we would like. I went to West Point at age 17. I did not go because I wanted to serve my nation. I went because I thought it would be interesting and fun. Later in my career, my values shifted over time. Some of the things they taught me I thought were silly, but I still fold my underwear in my drawers. Now that may not make sense, but it shows things what you do starts to be inside you. They start to be very, very important. And I think what we've done, if you think about it, we had this common sense of community in old days when there were children, families, and grandparents all living in the same community. That tends not to happen much anymore. We also had it when we needed the community for mutual defense, to raise barns, to do things. You had to have it. Now we've become more atomized. We tend to have a transactional relationship with our government and almost no relationship with our neighbors. And so how do you bring that back? How do you bring back this sense of responsibility? And I think it's through experience. We go back to Tom Brokaw's definition or description of the greatest generation who went through the Depression and went through the Second World War and produced this amazing thing. And sometimes we're confused and we think that he calls them the greatest generation for what they did when 16 million Americans wore a uniform and every American was touched by the Second World War. He was really telling us that that became a different generation than they would have been because much was asked of them. They gave that, and it shaped them for the rest of their lives. Now, for lots of reasons, some good, some I don't agree with, that has gone down. We don't ask a lot. Less than 1% of all Americans are touched by direct involvement in any of the recent conflicts we've had. And whether you agree with the conflicts, it doesn't matter. We also don't require people to do the kinds of service that I think give you an intimate relationship with your city, an intimate relationship with your country, and an intimate relationship with your other citizens. So the Franklin Project is about giving the opportunity to every young American between the age of 18 and 28 to do a year of fully paid national service, conservation, healthcare, education. There's a whole spectrum. If they want to do military, they can do that, but that's a small part of it. And it's to give them that year of working with people who aren't from their zip code, doing something that's hard but of value, doing something that will shape them in a sense of, for what you contribute to, you tend to value more. And it's not the work they do that's going to do that much for the nation. What we're really going to produce is alumni. We're going to produce alumni which for the next 50, 60 years of their lives, statistically will vote at 3 times the rate of people who don't. They will be in rooms like this because it's reflexive, it's what they will learn to do, and they will have a different view of what being a citizen means. We are 2.5 years into the program pushing this. It's not a new idea, it's been around a long time, but as you know, many of the programs which started, Sergeant Shriver said the Peace Corps would never really hit its stride till it was 100,000 people. It's about 4,000 now because we don't fund it. AmeriCorps, well, the Serve America Act, which authorizes 250,000 slots a year, is funded at less than 80, and it's about to be cut again. And so what we are doing is we are talking about what we want, but we are not actually putting our resources and our efforts and our hearts in giving young people the opportunity to be responsible. And I think it'll pay off hugely. It's a long speech, Craig, but thanks for
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that. One of the things that I know you're recruiting are you're recruiting cities for the Serve America or the year in service What could Seattle and Tacoma and other Pacific Northwest cities do to get on board? What steps could they take to make this a reality?
Yeah, there are a number of cities that have already jumped in. Mitchell-Landreau down in New Orleans. Flint, Michigan is deep into it. Baltimore is deep into it. I mean, you think of cities who have problems, but every city has a challenge. New York has a huge program now, and they're looking to double it. What cities can do first is form a task force that looks at what's already happening there. Right now, we probably don't know. When I was in the military, I did not know what AmeriCorps was. I did not know what City Year was. I knew what Teach for America was because it was kind of high profile. I knew what the Peace Corps was. I didn't know about any of these others. There's a constellation of them, most of which are fairly small, but they're not very well united. I think the first thing cities can do is form an entity to pull all those efforts together so that they can begin to get their arms around what is already happening. You're going to do a lot better if you're connected and there's some synergy between those parts. The second is look at what problems you're going to solve and communicate that to the people in your city. Some of the volunteer or some of the service work you want done by people from your state and your city, some you want from people who aren't, because you want people from Iowa to do work here and then go back to Iowa. We want to try to get some circulation among our nation and young people because I think it will pay good long-term dividends. So those are some of the things. We just had a 3-day course. We've designated 46 ambassadors around the nation. And those 46 ambassadors are going to run programs in their states, pulling together. We've got some great help by state leadership in a number of states, governors and mayors. Those 46 ambassadors are now pulling a network together where we will connect and we will start to be able to pass best practices, push things politically, create more synergy across those as we try to grow this. Our near-term goal, and near-term is 10 years, is to get 1 million young people doing service every year. And we're less than 200,000 right now.
Are there any particular organizations that are supporting, other than government, that are supporting this?
There are. Cisco Systems, for example, has donated the money and helped us build a digital platform. And that digital platform is going to be a 21st century connection so that a young person interested in doing service, right now it's kind of hard to find. And if you sit at the dinner table, as Estela mentioned, and you have these conversations, and nobody's ever served at that dinner table before, what do you talk about? How do you be informed about that? So Cisco has formed this digital platform, which goes actually open to the public in the fall, and it's going to allow young people and their parents to look and see all the different opportunities. It's also going to allow companies and organizations, companies, for example, to philanthropically support it, but also organizations that want to have service members, they can get certified. So what you'll find is positions can be certified by an organization that then young person can apply for that and funding can be provided, partly government and a civilian, a private-public partnership.
And I understand the alumni for this would actually get something called a service year transcript at the end of it that would show what they had done, what their commitment to public service was?
Yeah, well, that really goes to several things. When you leave the military, you get a DD-214, and it's a form that says you served, and it's got some key things about it. If you serve in most other organizations, there's no equivalent. And so if you go to an employer or a school and you say, I did this, there's no recognized document that says, okay, yeah, they did this. We think that's going to be important for the pride of the people who do it, but also to have a common understanding so that we can put value on it. And then what we're doing is working with different civilian companies, one thing called Employers for National Service. What they do is value national service. And what we are pushing for is some of the very high profile firms to say things like, okay, we will hire you. We guarantee you this job. Report to us 12 months from now as soon as you finish your national service. You're guaranteed. We're talking to people like Goldman Sachs and whatnot because people can put that. Walmart, talking to them the same way. Because if you guarantee it, right now there are a lot of things that cause people to be hesitant about doing service. We deal with a lot of parents whose kids are either coming out of high school or coming out of college, and the young person says, I want to do it, but they've got a job opportunity that's good. And sometimes the parents or the young person is a little nervous about taking it because they're afraid a year from now things could be different and they won't have that same opportunity. Same with admissions into college. If you apply to a school like Yale where I teach and you get in this year and suddenly you'd like to do a year of service before you go, but you're worried, I might not get in next year. We're pushing the schools to guarantee your acceptance 12 months from now so that you take that angst away. And there are a number of other things like that that we actually think make serving more difficult. We're trying to wipe those away so that it becomes culturally expected. We also make it easier.
Well, thank you, General, for throwing down that challenge to us. I think you're going to get broad support in this room, in particular, for that challenge. But I'd like to turn to the book now, if I can. And after your 2013 best-selling memoir, My Share of the Task, why did you choose to write a book on leadership at that point?
Because I think leadership's everything. In the military, I learned that the Army with the best weapons and the best strategy does not beat the Army with the best leadership. And so as a consequence, I think leadership is the common denominator for success in every kind of organization. And it's not limited to military or government, it's civilian, it's nonprofit and everything. So I think leadership, but not just the quality of leaders, but the reality that the environment in which we lead today is different than it was even 15 or 20 years ago. When I wrote my memoirs, well, I had grown up in the military. I spent a career in the military. My father was a soldier. My father's father was a soldier. And I was raised in a school that was based really on industrial age ideas and organizational principles that had been pushed by a number of people, to include people like Frederick Winslow Taylor, who was so focused on efficiency. And most of what we do today still in some way connects to that model. But when I got to Iraq in the fall of 2003, and we were against an enemy that was very, very different, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, very similar to what you're seeing from ISIS today, it's completely different from what we are expected and set up for. We're expecting to fight a hierarchical nation-state kind of enemy that's got senior leadership, or if it's not a nation-state terrorist, it's got senior leadership and a predictable organizational pattern, because that's the way organizations work. Gives them predictability, gives them efficiency, gives them structure. What we found instead was this loose network, almost franchise-like network, that operated with stunning adaptability, extraordinary agility, and this resilience. There was no way to go destroy it by going after Mr. Big or any key point in that. Instead, they were like a living organism that changed every hour of every day. And they weren't that way because they planned it. They didn't have an off-site with a big bunch of consultants come in and say this would be a great idea. What happened was, as they formed, they intersected with the rise of modern communications, which is only about 15 years old. Cell phones and computers. Now, we had advantages in the world. We had unmanned aerial vehicles, precision weapons, night vision, all of that. They didn't have any of it. We had information technology, but so did they. So as a consequence, what happened is suddenly they could communicate between themselves in ways no organization ever could before. And they could do it so fast and so easily that they became unconsciously adaptable. There was not the same kind of process to get things done. And when you see ISIS today, ISIS communicates every day with 100 million people through social media and other ideas. So their ability to pump ideas out like Al-Qaeda in Iraq was tied us in knots. It put us in this challenge where our legacy organization, no matter how good it was inappropriate for the problem. So in the midst of what became an incredibly difficult fight in Iraq from about 2004 to 2008, we changed our organization completely. We changed how we led, we changed how we interacted. And we were the most elite force the United States has ever fielded. And it's hard to change a force that's failing and weak. It's even harder to change a force that's really, really good and feels good about itself. And so we had to do that. And so when I wrote my memoirs, at the end of it, I realized that the core of the story that I was most passionate about was that experience of change. And the thesis that I wanted to explore was, did we have a unique wartime experience in a very special place, or was this a universal change in the environment that was affecting everybody? So we spent 2.5 years studying that, and that's exactly the conclusion that we came to that it's absolutely common. Nonprofits are running into it, governments running into it, businesses are running into it. Big structures that used to be bureaucratic but were plenty fast for the conditions of the time are just being swept to pieces by the speed and interconnectedness in which they're finding themselves. It's like being suddenly in a hurricane, and everything you did before, you're still doing well, but it doesn't work anymore. Look at the big organizations, look at our government, look at other things. Suddenly, it's like they have vertigo. And that's what's happening to an increasing number of organizations. And so what I've come passionate about is we need to take a different way of thinking about it, a different way of thinking about how we lead. For me, the big change was you have to go to what you could call radical transparency or shared consciousness. When I took command, we had this daily video teleconference. I had about 15,000 people in the fight, but we had a daily operations and intelligence video teleconference to communicate between the two key headquarters. Then the idea of those two key headquarters would put all the information out and bring it back up again. You know how that works. It trickles down and then it trickles back up. And that was way too slow. We just couldn't get it done. And information gets filtered and corrupted by the time it gets down there. And when it gets back up, it's already irrelevant because the situation's changed too much. Heraclitus told you never step in the same river twice. And when it's moving really fast, you can't even touch the same thing twice. So what we did was we changed it, and every day we did a video teleconference with the entire command. People who were on duty, people who were actually in the middle of an operation. And we had about 7,500 people every day for 90 minutes. And so you think about it, holy smoke. 7,500 people times 90 minutes, and the CFO of a company loses their mind because they do a calculation. Most efficient thing we did it for 5 years that I commanded that organization every day. 5 years, we got like this, but 7,500 people all discussing what's going on, not in a big formal briefing to the commander, but in a conversation, a structured conversation across the command. So everybody knew what was happening, and everybody could walk out of there, and they didn't have to come back up for instructions on what to do or approval, because they knew what we're doing. And they could make decisions at a very low level with confidence, because people say you got to decentralize authority. But if you're down 8 levels down in an organization and someone says, okay, I give you the authority to make decisions, but they don't accompany it with all the kinds of information, contextual understanding that exists higher, then suddenly you go, well, what do I do? What are we trying to do? It's unfair. What we did is we turned it upside down, pumped the information down and across, and we said, now we're empowering you to act, and we're expecting you to act. We increased our speed of operations, the pace of our operations by 17-fold. And so as a consequence, we were able to do things we couldn't have dreamed of before. When Al-Qaeda in Iraq was beaten, and it was beaten about 2008, 2009, the new manifestation is a rebirth because it took our eye off the ball. It was because we were able to get focused and get everybody into the effort together, and not just the key leaders.
Well, the new book is Team of Teams. Much has been written lately about network theory and systems of systems. How is Team of Teams different in its approach to leadership?
Yeah, if you think about a team, everybody says, I want to be on a team, and most of us have been on a team. And you could finish each other's sentences, you could do things together, you didn't spend a lot of time bureaucratically making decisions. But then at a certain point, if a group gets past about 100 people, you can't be a team anymore because it's too big. You don't know everybody. If you're in a small firm or in a small organization, at some point you walk down the hallway and you don't know somebody. And then suddenly you realize, whoa, maybe we're not a team in the traditional sense, because a team has certain properties. It's got trust and common purpose. And without thinking about it, it's got shared consciousness because everybody, the information's boundable and everybody can do that. Once you get bigger than a certain size, and I'd offer 100, it can be different for different organizations, suddenly it doesn't work that way. And so now what you've got to do is have smaller teams that have those qualities, but you've got to link them in a way that you have the same kind of synergy that you would have between individuals on a small team, but you're going to have it on the small teams that make up the large team, hence Team of Teams. And it doesn't just come by saying we're going to be a team of teams, because in the organization I had, we had JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, we had Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, the Rangers and whatnot. Very strong cultures, very big personalities, very tribal habits, and everybody that wasn't in their team was sort of not trusted. Delta didn't like the SEALs didn't like Delta. Both of them looked down at the Rangers, and nobody liked the Aviators. As I say, why would you? So as a consequence, you think you've got this synergy just because you bring people together, but the reality is, look at the 2004 men's Olympic basketball team. We brought the best, most celebrated basketball players in the world together, and we were lucky to get a bronze medal because they weren't a team. And we take this group of different, very strong-willed small teams, we group them together, and we say we must automatically, therefore, have the synergy of a single team or team of teams, and you don't. It takes a tremendous amount of effort. So that shared consciousness was the key thing. We also did a number of other things to cross-fertilize people. We put exchange systems. We did all these things to make sure you knew people in other organizations. Probably the biggest difference that personally affected me was how you lead, how the leader leads. And this applies to lots of leaders. There's not one leader in an organization, but I grew up in sort of the heroic model of leadership, and I'll bet some people in this room did as well, whether you're military or government, civilian or whatever. And that heroic model says that you are the person who makes the decisions. You are the essential person. People look up to you. When people come to you for decisions, you think you should have an answer to their question. You think you should be able to have that, so you do that. In the military sense, you see a painting of a general on a battlefield and moving the troops around and got the brilliant plan to execute, sort of like controlling marionettes on strings. Or think of chess. Came out of the 6th century India as a game to teach strategy. And you've got 64 squares on a chessboard, that's your battlefield. You've got 16 chess pieces, and your opponent has 16 chess pieces. And in a traditional game, you're across the table from your single opponent, and it's who's the best strategist at moving your 16 pieces. And if you're the better strategist, you move, they move, you move, they move, and it works okay. And I was raised in that sense that I would be the best strategist and I would move my forces. But in Iraq, against a guy named Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, the leader of al-Qaeda in Iraq, we move, he moves, I move, he moves, and suddenly he moves again, and he moves again. And I go, wait a minute, that's against the rules. And I'm reminded, sometimes there ain't no rules. And then suddenly I realize he's not moving his pieces. The chess pieces he have all think for themselves, act on their own initiative, and communicate between each other all the time, effortlessly. So suddenly it's me trying to move 16 pieces against 16 free-thinking, incredibly networked individuals. But what if it's not me against 16? What if it's me against 1,600 or 16,000? Suddenly, you can't be a good enough chess master to do that. And that's the change in the environment. But we want to hold on to it. We want to have the CEO or the president or the whatever you call it person have control because they're responsible. And you can't give that away. You're always responsible. But you can't have that kind of control and operate in today's environment because it's too fast and too interconnected. So I sort of backed into an entirely new model for myself, and I believe strongly in it. And the way I describe it now, it's like being a gardener. And that's not heroic. But think what a gardener does. My mother was a big vegetable gardener. I worked the manure pile. But my mother never grew any fruit or vegetables, never once. The plants did that. Nobody can grow, only the plants can. But the plants can't do it without some help. You can't just throw seeds out and expect it to happen. You've got to create an ecosystem, an environment in which the plants can do that. You've got to tend it, you've got to water it, you've got to do all the things that make it work. And that's what I think the leader does now. I think the leader's a gardener. And I think you empower and allow and encourage the plants to do what only they can do and do very well. But it's not quite as heroic as being the general. And that's what we got to get over. We just got to recognize times have changed.
Thank you. You know, I did a little bit of snooping and found the syllabus for your leadership seminar at Yale, and I was intrigued by your last class. You close out that seminar with a class on the future leader. If we were all standing at the back of that classroom, how would that conversation go with those young students at Yale, which Annie tells me is a rather international group? How does that conversation go with regard to the future leader?
Yeah, it's interesting. I teach 20 young people for a semester. And the way we do it is it's a 2-hour class, 13 sessions, a 2-hour class. And then after class, every class, we go to a local bar and drink beer together, which is a key part of it. And we also spend 2 days at Gettysburg, not learning tactics, but just getting away from the school and talking leadership. We go stand on the ground, for example, where General John Buford, a 37-year-old cavalry commander, made the decision to commit the entire Army of the Potomac to what he felt would be the decisive battle of the war without any other instructions. He went up there, looked at the ground, and said, okay, this is where we will fight. And he called back to his commander and said, I've just committed the Army by planting here. And so I raised the question, what allows a 37-year-old guy to feel like he's got the authority and the confidence to do that? And we explore the relationships, relationship with his boss, relationship with his subordinates, relationship with his sense of responsibility. And so the entire course, the 13 sessions build. So if you're in the last seminar, it's completely different from the first because I try to make the 20 students a team among themselves to create this set of relationships. So in this last class, it gets much more philosophical than at the beginning because we do some case studies on failure, case studies on the media, we do case studies on how to make decisions. But the entire arc of the class is to bring people back around that it is not having the right answer. I start the course by telling everybody, what I've now come to believe is 2 + 2 does not equal 4. And they know my academic background, so they're not surprised at that. But I say 2 + 2 does not equal 4. It equals what the people in the room decide it equals. So if you go into the room and you've got the right idea and you're the most passionate person in the world, that doesn't matter if you don't have relationships with people, credibility, if you haven't built up the kinds of sinew that allow the right answer to be reached, it's irrelevant. And you see so many people, particularly in Washington, D.C., they get just the right strategy or just the right policy, and they just can't understand why it doesn't happen. Because in their mind, it's perfect. But in reality, getting things done is compromise, it's working with people, and at the end of the day, it's interaction between human beings. And so the end of that is the leader. That's what the leader does. The leader's not the smartest person in the room with the right answer. The leader, if they're really good, gets a group of people to get to the best answer that they can and then actually execute it.
Well, thank you. I think Diane's going to tell me hard deck is 125, but I know you seldom miss the opportunity to exhort the audience that hiring veterans is not only the right thing to do, it's a darn smart thing to do. What is it we need to do for our veterans today, General?
Yeah, well, thanks for that. I'll say it quickly. The first thing is the U.S. government did not send our veterans to war. You did. Now, some of you will say, no. Yes, you did. We elect a government, we do policies. They come from our towns, they come from our villages, they come from farms and whatnot. We send them. We are responsible to them. They are responsible to us as they go into the service. We are responsible to them as they come back. And we need to think of them as part of us.
Time for one last word for him to close.
Thank you very much for all you're doing right here. I mean, it's, you know, we are only going to make America what it is at this level when we get stuff done. If we're waiting for some person from above to suddenly get things right, we'll be waiting a long time. It's going to take grassroots effort, and it's heartening to see this. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, General Stan McChrystal, team of teams.
I want to thank Professor Allen and General McChrystal, congratulate Estela Ortega, voice another appreciation for our sponsors and table hosts, board and staff, my dearest team of teams. In Team of Teams, the book, General McChrystal writes, purpose affirms trust, and trust affirms purpose, and together they forge individuals into a working team. We are so grateful to all of you as investors in CityClub's mission and work for your trust in our purpose. We are so proud that you are our team of teams. Today is a historic day in America, a day when we mourn lives lost, a day when we affirm equality. Thank you for being with us. I want to remind you that books are available still in the library, in the lobby. Thank you for being with us.